A dangerous pattern is emerging. Look at the recent events that's going on in both Las Vegas and also in New Orleans. Here's the thing. We've had over 700 cases since 1990 that involve mass shootings that have veterans and a sprinkle of active duty. Okay. That's according to the SMART program that tracks all this stuff. Or is it the START program? The Study of Terrorism and Response to Terrorism, the START program at the University of Maryland. One of the biggest cases that I can remember when it came to veterans or active duty being involved in seemingly something that could almost be considered terrorism would be January 6, 2021. Tons of veterans and active duty members and even some police officers were charged with the events of January 6th. But to be fair, is it domestic terrorism? Isn't it domestic terrorism? Is it an attack on was it an attack on the Capitol? Yeah. Was it the former two? I don't know. I don't know the definition of that stuff, but I do know this, okay? We've had an issue with veterans and being involved in mass shootings, similar type of issues. We've had that type of stuff going on today. Today's a regular espresso, no lungo, no Americanos, no nothing like that. 18 in, 36 or so out into the cup. But the recent events when it comes to active duty members being radicalized, whether it is white nationalism, white power, white extremism, or Islamic extremism. I think in the 70s and late 60s, we had an issue with black extremism, with active duty members being radicalized into the Black Panthers. This isn't a new phenomenon, but it's coming back around again. As I mentioned in my previous videos, that the cases of the 1970s give us a layout of what could happen nowadays. And we need to be concerned, in my opinion, with the number of active duty members that are starting to do and commit these type of targeted attacks. I think it's an issue. I think about everyday carry all the time. Watches, knives, what type of phone I'm gonna carry with me that day, what type of whatever, right? I think about, everyday carry. And my prep type stuff is something that I kind of, SHTF and prep type stuff is something that I kind of revisit whenever it pops into my head. Maybe that's once a month, whatever. But since 2020, it's been something that I revisit and relive more often than not. And I don't know if that's a concern that everyone shares. 1 second. Now, one of the most infamous cases of an active duty member committing an act of extremism, I don't even like saying these people's names, but I'll just kind of say them for the case of this, is I think it was Nadil Hassan. He was a major and he was a psychiatrist, and he committed a bunch of stuff on an Army base where he killed over 13 people. We have, in 2020, Stephen Carrillo. He was an active duty airman at the time. He killed 2 police officers after expressing anti-government beliefs, and now he's serving a 41-year sentence. And, in 2023, which was one of the most recent things I can remember, which is Robert Card. He was an U.S. Army reservist. He carried out a deadly mass shooting in Lewiston, Maine, where 18 people were killed. Here's the thing about active duty veterans, but especially active duty. We unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, have the ability to be more effective with weapons than an everyday citizen. I know citizens can train and they can learn and they can be better marksmen than we are and all that other stuff. But organized discipline, learning how to do this stuff, being regulated to do this stuff is something that's real. And I don't think that the government has done enough to combat extremism in the military ranks. I think that it's always been an issue with veterans. Veterans struggle with PTSD, homelessness, not being able to find a job, medical issues, other issues related to their their military service. And it's kind of like, okay, I understand how that could happen with veterans, but increasingly happening with active duty is something that we need to be a little bit more, I think, vigilant about, because the fact is the 42-year-old man who committed the stuff out in New Orleans, he was a vet. He was a vet who served for like 13 years. He retired as a staff sergeant. Hindsight being 2020, I don't know how the ranking goes for the Army, but I know for the Marines, if you were a 13-year staff sergeant, a lot of people will wonder what was going on with your career. Like a 13-year staff sergeant, you've made it over 10 years. 13 years is a weird number. I know in the Marine Corps, we do stints of 4 or 6. I have questions about his separation from the military. I do, but I don't know, more to come on that. Like for me, I made staff sergeant in 5 years. I would have made gunnery sergeant probably in 7. I mean, I probably would have made it in 10, but I got out the 8-year mark. But that's neither here nor there. But the point being is, he was a vet. But the guy that did the stuff in Las Vegas, he was still an active duty member, which we know even less about. He was a Green Beret, active duty Green Beret. He was stationed in Germany, and he was on leave for the holidays when he committed all this stuff in Las Vegas. Now, the crazy thing is that there's no record of showing extremist posts, extremist views. At least the FBI hasn't been able to find it yet. So the guy that did all the stuff in New Orleans, there are examples of him converting to Islam after he got out the army. There's examples of him joining ISIS as early as last year and becoming radicalized. Here's the issue I have with the right. Okay, and I like to dish it out when it needs to be dished out. Here's the issue I have right now. President Trump is about to be sworn in for his next term, January 20th. And sometimes I don't like when he gets a fact. Hold on, give me a second. When he gets a fact wrong, I don't like the fact that he doubles and triples down once the information is clearly corrected for the sake of not being wrong or for political gain. Like, I don't know which one it is. I want my president to be successful. He's about to become my president. I want him to be successful. But one thing I learned as a man is that you have to be able to either admit when you're wrong, or if you don't want to admit when you're wrong, at least have the ability to course correct when you are wrong. There's some times when Mrs. X catch me slipping or my homeboys catch me slipping. I may not give you the satisfaction of saying I was wrong, but I will course correct. If we're driving down the highway the wrong direction, the homeboy says, hey, we're going the wrong direction. I swear that we're not. I figure out after 12 miles that we are. I might flip the car around and go the other way. I may not apologize. I might not even bring it up. I might turn the music up and keep living my life. Speaking of that, got this freaking espresso looking creamy AF. That's what I want President Trump to do. I just want you to whip it around and start going the other direction. Okay, whenever you find out some information is wrong. He came out early on the day of the New Orleans issue and said that the issue is that people are crossing the border, people in radicalization is happening, people are coming in through the country radicalized, which may be true. And it might be true because that truck has passed through Eagle Pass before, the truck that he rented. People, I am not going to say that he never went into Mexico. He never was radicalized. But the basic facts are he was a U.S. born citizen. He was an American. He was a vet, and he committed these crimes. Now, did he leave the country? Did he go other places? Those are all possibilities. But when you find out that your initial facts were not correct, you gotta whip that car around and show people that you can course correct. The reason I say that's important is because you're about to be the leader of the military, and we need the Pentagon to root out the issues of active duty members possibly becoming radicalized. And if you can't admit that you got some stuff wrong and only focus on the border or focus on folks coming across, we can miss threats that are within. That's a hill that I think we cannot die on. We have to pay attention to. Let me try this out. Now, let's just keep it real. His name would lead you to believe that he was not American. His name is, or it was, Shamshid Din Jabbar. And I'm probably mispronouncing that. And people who have a similar name, no offense to you, fuck that guy, but no offense to you. But let's just keep it real. You live in a certain part of the country. I know, like, the places where I go to my hunting property, if I were to run that name by them, they would be like, yeah, he wasn't an American, or he wasn't. He was a naturalized or whatever. He was born in America. And sometimes when you got a crazy name, some people could just discount your value as an American. I need us to be vigilant of all threats. And if right now there's an internal possible threat of radicalization of active duty members, we have got to lean heavy on the Pentagon to make sure we uproot this issue. We're really good at producing disciplined people. Normally, it's harder to be a radicalized active duty member because you're hanging out with the people with similar mindset. You're busy with, you're supposed to be normally disciplined and have a rigid schedule. At least in the Marine Corps, I had a very rigid, disciplined schedule. You know, PT 3 or 4 times a week. We had to be there at 06. We had to work all day. I normally didn't get off until 1630, 1700, sometimes earlier. And when I got home, I had family life to do. I had a young daughter, and then it kind of just all went around again. And I still blame, I still blame the lack of a warmth of a woman, but I might be wrong on that. It might just be radicalization. But I do believe that a lot of it has to do with incels who just aren't getting vagina. But that's just my opinion on that. But I think that we have to realize and focus on the possible issues of not being able to completely uproot radicalization of the military. But what do I know? Comment down below. Do you think that that's an issue? Over 700 cases since 1990. It's been an upcrease from 11% to 18% from 2020 to 2023 of radicalization and in mass shootings. It being an active duty member, veterans has always been high on that list. It's always been high when it comes to males. But we can't just hyper focus on a foreign threat. I think we need to focus on what's going on in the States. This is your first time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. And I thought it was pretty important to talk about the military aspect because I was in the Marines. So, you know, for everyone else, we'll speak soon. Good shit.